you? Do you think?
Yeah. And then after that, you know, what happened?
Well,
do you think it's possible? I mean, I don't know now. This is one that's thrown a spanner in my works here a little bit. And does it matter? This is what I'm going to say to you as well. Does it matter? Does it find any closer to either pinning it on Penny, or should we be looking in this direction? Or I still think that whether the dog was running here or there, or whether it was at the bench, or whether it was 9:10 or 9:15, or whether Ron can remember whether he had eggs for breakfast, you know, I don't think any of that really matters if there's no evidence Nicola herself was not there. You know, I do think it's important where we find the dog and, you know, what's going on. I think it all paints a picture, but it's all a picture of some BS that I think, you know, still, to me, what I'm not finding. When I watched Emma's testimony, what I was able to find was, wow, that sounds really bad. It sounds like you've done this. Wow, why are you saying that? Oh my God, we should check over here. And like with Paul, it was like, are you even related to this woman? Do you even care? What's going on with you? Like, this seems really bad for you, Paul. You know, and with this, it's not so much that, is it? It's like, was Penny here or there, or... You know, the only one I don't really like is, what's Penny doing in the field in the first place? Is it part of her normal routine? Like, why don't you ask that question? But other than that, I'm not like, oh my God, this definitely could have been a murder. Like, Nicola was here and they carried her off to the caravan park. Like, I'm not feeling that about this. And I think it would be really almost like, could you, like, how old is Ron and how old is Penny? And like, why would they need to, like, if they've had a row, do you think it would get to the point... Like, would anyone get to the point, even with Penny being an eggy chuffer, would you end up punching her in the head and having a row and murdering each other? Or someone getting murdered? Would Ron feel compelled on his dog walk to, like, you know... Like, I've had to say to somebody before, pick up your dog poo. I've just seen your dog do that poo. Go and pick it up. And they'll be like, oh, chuffy, chuffy, chuffer. They're not going to murder me. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, it was just a progression of things happening, you know.
I don't like this either. It was a progression of things happening. That's what he's asking you about. What happened? Oh yeah, it was just a progression of things happening. And I think what he means is escalation instead of progression. Like, progression is one thing after the other, but there is no normal progression in this sort of circumstance. I think maybe it sounds a bit like distancing language. So maybe Ron has actually tried to okay, I was here, I did see the phone, but, you know, I'm now just like an outsider while all this other stuff is happening. Or maybe he's trying to say to this guy, you know, well, I don't know, it's just a progression of things happening. Like, maybe it's distancing language, red flag for distancing language, but and for, you know, putting in words to allow yourself to think of a better answer. But also, you know, yellow card the red flag, you know, yellow flag it for it being a situation where Ron is not really in the know and he doesn't know exactly what everyone else is doing and saying, and is not the man in control of the phone and the police and the situation, but instead has just like been a small part in this story as a bystander almost, and doesn't really like have the best answer for this.
It's a progression of things happening, you know. We found out because of the wallpaper on the phone.
We found out because of the wallpaper on the phone, and he does this again where he holds the phone in his hand and looks down at it, like where he physically acts out like the physics. Do you know what I mean? Like the act of holding the phone. We found out like that's quite an honest gesture, I believe. Like he's remembering it. Like if this was my read on Ron, like it is my only read on Ron, but I would say he's probably quite a tactile person, quite a, you know, I need to get my hands on it and do it before I can work it out sort of guy. Physically has held that phone and has looked at that wallpaper, and this is his memory of doing so.
The phone, we found out who the couple were, then the school was contacted and Paul arrived.
Yeah.
And this is what people wanted to pick up in chat earlier. You're right, Lottie, actually. That guy got murdered at Regis's, yeah, but it's like, you've got to judge those situations.
Swish, and then whoosh.
Narc Slayer sent tippies. You're wasted on YouTube. Your calling is the Behavioral Analysis Unit on Criminal Minds, and Pikachu is my favorite Big Loves Chuffer Red Heart Hash.
Thank you very much, Narc
Super
Slayer.
Chuffer owes 6 hugs.
Thank you very much, Narc Slayer. Narc Slayer knows where it's at. Thank you. Thank you for the 6 hugs. Thank you. I'm all right in my little, I'm all right staying in my little lane. But if they want to give me a call, yeah. So this interesting facet here about, what is it?
We found out who the couple were, then the school was
They wanted me to say about in chat about, then Paul arrived.
contacted and Paul arrived.
And Paul arrived. And Paul arrived, gets a shake of the head and a dismissal as he goes to move away, as if that's the end of it all. It's funny, isn't it, that he did say, I know, earlier he said, I know both dog walkers, owners of. He didn't say Nicola and Paul earlier. He said the owners of the dog, because he was referring to the time before when they were strangers to him. I knew them as just people who walked dog. Now I know them as Nicola and Paul. Like, there's no way he doesn't know it's Nick. Like, he couldn't say, I don't know Nicola's name at this point in the conversation, could he? I don't know who Nicola is. But then I didn't know her. I just knew her as a woman who walked dog. And so now Paul arrived and we're into the like, it's almost like we jumped from the moment Paul arrived to now. And Paul gets his name. It's not then the bloke whose dog it was arrived, and it turned out his name was Paul. And now Paul, like, he's like almost acknowledging that now he knows who the fuck Paul is. Yeah.
He spotted Willow initially and saw the phone, but didn't know what was going on with the phone.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then.
And that's right. Yes. I mean, he doesn't know what Penny did for that. That's just going back to what Penny did for a second. He doesn't know. He says, that's right. Yes. He wasn't there. He walked off. He saw the phone and he walked off, and then he got a phone call from his wife to say, come back, Penny's found this phone and this dog. And he's probably said, yeah, I know, I'm on the dog walk, I've seen that phone. Well, get back there then and help Penny out, you fucking chuffer. And he's like, all right, chuffing hell. I didn't know I had to go and, deal with this. Like, that's my feel on that. Yeah, carry on.
What happened?
Well,
what were the next steps?
It was just a progression of things happening. We found out because of the wallpaper on the phone. We found out.
That's interesting as well, because wallpaper on the phone, isn't it displayed when you're not on a call? Like, if you're on a work meeting, doesn't the work meeting display? And doesn't the wallpaper of the phone? So maybe the work meeting finished at some juncture. I mean, it probably did. And then maybe, because we're saying about time, we all assume, like, I'm on the phone, I found the wallpaper, I found the thing, it's all happening. It might have been that, he's had a fag, he's looked in the bushes, he's gone for a piss, he's come back, then he's checked the wallpaper again. Like, you don't know how often and how frequently he's been involved in this phone, and you don't know the time scale between find and action. But now we're at wallpaper on the phone as well, aren't we?
Who the couple were.
And we found out who the couple were. So my indication is that the wallpaper on the phone is the children, and he's pulling like a half, like a gruesome sort of, unhappy. There's an edge to this. I can't see it properly because he's only got half a face to me now. This is really difficult. But my feeling is that it gives him a pang of, like, this is a bad feeling. This is getting too raw and real because we're talking about children. Again, like I started at today's episode, this is a real woman that really died, and her children really are, going to suffer with this their whole life. And, my great belief is that she was murdered and the murderers should come to justice. I certainly understand his feelings of angst here at this moment, because he's referring to the moment so Ron is referring to the moment he has seen the phone and the wallpaper, and that's how he confirms who these people are. So there's either a picture of them, like it's either Nicola herself and Paul, and that's them, so you know who they are now, or in my opinion, because the school were involved. If you remember, they phoned the school. Why would you phone the school? Well, they've got kids. Yeah, how do you know they've got kids? They're on the phone. So you've seen these kids, maybe Nicola and her kids, and you've said, right, if she's got kids, and those kids go to that school. So.
And the school was contacted.
And the school was contacted immediately after. So he doesn't say, like, if you look at the phone and the wallpaper and the school was contacted, he means the school of the kids that were on the phone, yeah? So she had her kids as the wallpaper on the phone. Yeah.
Paul arrived.
Yeah.
And Paul arrived. And Paul gets disdain, shake of the head. That's the end of it as far as he's concerned. He's no longer required. Literally turns to walk away, as if, like, from the moment Paul arrives, I imagine Ron removed himself from the situation and has not been happy. At the start when we looked at that man who was having his caravan and he was selling his caravan, and they said, oh, that Penny, and like did the breathing out, and this same attitude here for Paul, but worse. And the turning away, this isn't defensive, confrontational. And it's not submission either, but it's literally, like I say, turning away. From the moment Paul arrives, turning away. I don't know if it's that you don't want to face someone else's sorrow, and it's like to maybe that, I don't know, or maybe just like, you know, this. How do you read someone's body language when you can't see their face and they've turned their back on you? Well, the fact that they've not shown me their face, they've turned their back on me is a big one. Hi, if you like what you've been watching, then consider subscribing to the Super Chuffer channel. This is just a short segment from a longer live broadcast. You can find it on the live, or press playlists and check out the extensive Nicola Bulley playlist. Once you've got through that, there's a Madly I'm a Cam one as well. Lots and lots of lovely, lovely stuff for you to check through and view. Super Chuffer channel on the road to 10k. This has been a little segment from a longer live. You be good, my little puckos. And remember, if you can't be good, you're naughty.